additional measures and steps in due course.
What next? Following President William Ruto's sweeping dismissal of cabinet secretaries, according to the Kenyan Constitution, he must now nominate new candidates for the vacant positions. These nominations will be subject to approval by the National Assembly after undergoing a vetting process by parliamentary committees. Each nominee must meet the criteria set out in the Constitution and take the oath of office before assuming their duties. Article 152(3) stipulates that the National Assembly must approve or reject the nominees within 21 days. Cabinet secretaries must only be nominated based on their qualifications, experience, and ability to perform the functions of the office. All right, now aside from the Gen Z protests, let's take a look at why these ministries and what has been ailing these ministries, for lack of a better word, or what has been plaguing these ministries. So we'll kick it off with the Ministry of Health, which was under the former Cabinet Secretary, Susan Nahumicha Wafula. Now, one of the things that ailed that particular cabinet was that there was a doctors and clinical officers strike. And the doctors were on strike for about 50 days before there was an agreement made by the stakeholders from various ministries. We also had the clinical officers strike, which went on for about 99 days. And this is just the latest because it was just recently is when they decided to call off their strike. So there was a doctor's strike, which was ongoing for about more than 50 days. And then the clinical officers strike for about 99 days. What was at the center of it? Good working conditions or better working conditions for the doctors, as well as the medical interns, hiring, because this is an important step that they have to go through before they get their license for practicing in Kenya. Also, the Social Health Insurance Fund complicated shift from the National Health Insurance Fund. What we've been seeing is a postponement of the launch of the SHIF. It began back in March, which was then postponed to July 1st. And so the SHIF complicated shift from NHIF. This has led to persons not benefiting from NHIF, or what we call SHIF, in various hospitals across the country, particularly private hospitals, which you would have had to pay for the services in cash. Also, the shortage of children vaccines, and this also was necessitated by the budget reduction from about 2.6 billion to 1.2 billion on matters vaccination. What was missing? TB vaccines was missing, polio vaccines, measles vaccines, rubella vaccines, malaria vaccines, as well as yellow fever vaccines. So also shortage of children vaccines. And finally, community health promoters stipend, which was delayed, the CHOs who were launched in the country, to be able to support the basic primary healthcare services. And so they each would have, get about 5,000 shillings, but there was a delay to that. So these are some of the issues that have been plaguing the Ministry of Health that have also called for members of the public to want the CS fired. Well, this is what led to perhaps this situation as well. Let's go to the Ministry of Agriculture, which was under the former Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi. Now, one of the key issues that was at the center of that ministry was the fake fertilizer scandal, where, farmers were not able to access quality fertilizers. And this was one of the issues that almost led to the impeachment of the former Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, that is Mithika Linturi. The process started. The motion was sponsored by Member of Parliament for Bumula constituency, Wanami Wamboka, but it didn't get through to the end because the committee that was in charge of his impeachment, didn't find reasons enough to impeach him, and so he remained in office. Also, fake seeds. Farmers had been complaining about fake seeds, all under the Ministry of Agriculture. Talk about contraband sugar and cooking oil. This was illegal and fake sugar that was in the market. And one of the issues actually that came right at the start of his reign in office was the contraband sugar and cooking oil. coffee farmers' remuneration shortfall. There were allegations that there are brokers who are not getting this money to the farmers of the coffee sector within the Mount Kenya region, led to, the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, taking charge of this situation. Has it ever been resolved? Well, there are still claims that farmers are still not getting what they're supposed to be getting, as well as the scarcity of maize seed locally. Now, the next ministry, let's take a look at the Ministry of Interior, which was under the former cabinet secretary that is Kithure Kindiki. Biggest problem that came up just recently was on the police brutality, where about 41 people died, and one of the things that he had to address was on the police brutality, as well as the abductions and the unconstitutional arrests. We've seen this, particularly now that we've had the anti-finance bill demonstrations, as well as the anti-government demonstrations, where 41 people died. This is under his ministry, and he recently also appeared on a local TV interview, to which he clarified and said, police are acting just within their constitutional mandate. On the abductions and unconstitutional arrests, says, arrests can be made anytime, even within the night, and says no unconstitutional arrests were made. Now, banditry attacks have been on the surge as well in the north. Has he been able to deal very well with the issue of the banditry attacks? Well, little can be said about that, because we still have reported deaths and cases of banditry attacks within the north. Recently, we saw cattle rustlers who invaded a village in Meru and made away with cattle of about, more than 100 cattle. And so he's not really been able to deal with the banditry attacks, as well as the passports delay early on in his regime. He said, he's really going all out on the passport delay issue. He made quite a lot of visits to Nyayo House, a lot of purging as well at Nyayo House. And he, there could be arguably a different opinion on whether or not he was able to properly deal with the issues of passport delay. Now, to the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, which, there was a reshuffle late last year, and the CS that was now put in charge was Alice Wahome. But initially, before she got to this ministry, we had Zakaria Njeru, that was the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works and Housing, and the housing levy and housing questions really came up. And if you remember, there was actually a very aggressive debate around the housing levy as well as the housing question, just trying to explain who will benefit from these housing plans. And the housing levy, of course, came into the limelight. We had a court case on it. They declared it unconstitutional late last year, but early this year, they were able to give a go-ahead on the housing levy, and there was a 1.5% deduction from the formal sector employees in a bid to provide proper housing for persons who governments say do not have quality housing. Also, land grabbing issues. Within this period, we've seen a lot of land grabbing claims from the Karima land, as well as we have the properties in Machakos as well, which was at the center of a vicious fight between parties, claiming to own this particular land. And so this has also been one of the issues that have plagued the Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development. Now, to the Ministry of Education, which was under the former Cabinet Secretary for Education, that is Ezekiel Machogu. Talk about the junior secondary school intern teachers hiring. They were on strike just to be able to get that permanent and pensionable terms, having said that, they earn just a paltry 17,000 shillings. Now, according to the former CS, this is one of the issues that was considered within the budget of the financial year 2024-2025, the now withdrawn budget. But recently, he still said it is under consideration for the JSS intern teachers to get that proper funding, or to get those permanent and pensionable terms of contract. Also, university funding model. The question on, is it affordable to now head to universities for education? Well, from what parents are saying, it is not, because there's now a band from band 1 to band 5 that determines who exactly will get funding from the government. We've got the very needy families, we've got the less needy families, and that is what determines the new university funding model. Also, the courses are becoming quite expensive. Talk about medicine, talk about law, engineering courses, architecture courses, which are becoming, quite expensive to the tunes of $500,000 shillings per academic year. And so the new funding model has also been at the center of the calling for sacking of now the former CS for education. School capitation, schools are saying, the government reduced the capita per learner in this year's financial year. And so this has also been at the center of things that are ailing the Ministry of Education. Ministry communication, this really came out when there was a flooding situation in the country and the government announced at 1 a.m. on the day of reporting of schools that students should not report to schools. And there was a lot of uproar concerning that, to which the CS said, it was a late decision that was made from above. Also, NEC and CUPET funding, they say now that the withdrawn finance bill is yet to be decided upon. Will they get money to conduct the examination, even as examiner fees and I believe supervisors' fees has also been withdrawn. So this is what was ailing the Ministry of Education. Now, the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, which was under Simon Chelugui, where we had now the question on the Hustler Fund, particularly that report by the Auditor General damning, if you'd love to call, which was under the former CS Simon Chelugui, which came out, particularly this project that was a baby to the president, William Ruto. He got onto office, with this particular project, said 50 billion shillings a year will be going to this Hustler Fund kitty. But now it emerges that, we've got people who would not register for the fund, getting the fund. We've also have people who have defaulted paying for the loans. We've also got a system, discrepancies as well within the Hustler Fund. So this was one of the issues that really came out actually recently under the Ministry of Cooperatives, Micro and Small Enterprises. Now on roads and transport, which was under the former CS Kipchumba Murkomen. Now this was one of the issues that a lot of people said it was, bad, how would we put it? Bad for the country, bad image for the country, and that is on the leaking roofs and the state of the airports. Now, we saw videos online, particularly during the rainy season, where the JKIA, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, was leaking, and there was quite a lot of concern around this, as well as just what image does it portray for Kenya as a country when you've got this kind of scenario and the state of airport in the country, as well as road maintenance and rehabilitation. With the rain, some of the roads were destroyed. With the protests, the Azimio protests, roads were destroyed. Have they been rehabilitated back? Also on road maintenance, recently there was an uproar over the road maintenance levy, fuel levy, which was to go up by 7 shillings from about 18 to 25 shillings. Well, that process is still in the public participation stage, where a lot of stakeholders have said, that's really not the best solution. So this has been really what has been at the center of the Ministry of Roads and Transport. And then finally, on the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, talk about blackouts, national blackouts, and just the question on, does it mean anytime it rains in Kenya, there has to be a blackout? And we saw quite a number of blackouts that were reported in 2023, to which it put the former CS Davis Chirchir on the spotlight. Also electricity prices, which jumped up in 2023. Well, just checked recently, actually, for the month of July. If you buy tokens now, you'll notice a slight reduction on the charges. Also petrol prices, which moved up to a history high when Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority reviewed prices late last year, but now the prices arguably have been able to stabilize. So those are some of the issues that have been ailing various ministries across the country that perhaps has led to a sacking of these CSs. Now, allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, my guest is in studio, John Kinuthia, who's a leadership and integrity expert. I will be taking a deep dive or deep look into this momentous time in Kenya's history with the dissolution of the cabinet. What does this mean for Kenya? No finance bill in place for 2024, 2025, no cabinet in place. What does this mean for Ruto's presidency? We'll be back shortly with that conversation. Stay with us.